Aloha champions, and welcome back to this Thursday science video. In this video, we're looking at our final two inventors for the Eureka unit. We're talking about Miss Bette Nesmith Graham and Mr. Alexander Fleming. For both of these inventors, just like we've been doing the last couple videos, we want to talk about what kind of things did they invent? What kind of challenges or disappointments did they face along the way to become inventors? And what are some interesting facts that we learn about both of these characters and or their inventions? So without further ado, I shall begin with Miss Bette Nesmith Graham. Howdy, guys and gals, and thank you all so much for the chance to appear in your classroom. I'm afraid my invention may seem a little old-fashioned today, but in the 1950s, it was revolutionary. Back then, I worked as a secretary at a big bank in Dallas, Texas, which also happens to be the town where I was born back in March 23, 1924. Of course, we didn't have computers and printers in those days. All our letters and business documents were typed on a typewriter. And you've seen a typewriter, haven't you? Oh gosh, maybe not. You're all so young. Anyway, we had the darndest time if we typed even one letter wrong. A pencil eraser doesn't work on typewriter ink. No eraser does, believe me. I tried lots of them. The upshot was, if you did make a mistake, you had to go back to the beginning and start again. Can you imagine? Then, one December, I was painting holiday snowflakes on the bank windows, when suddenly it hit me. Painters don't erase their mistakes, they simply paint over them. Maybe the same idea would work for fixing typing mistakes. So I mixed up a batch of quick-drying paint that matched the colors of the bank's typing paper and put a bottle with a tiny little paintbrush. The next day at work, when I made a mistake in my typing, I just painted over the wrong letters and then typed the correct ones over the paint after it dried. Soon, all the secretaries at the bank were asking for my magical mistake out. A chemistry teacher at the local high school helped me improve the formula, and all of a sudden I was selling my invention, now called liquid paper, all over the world. I ran my own company, bringing a rarely seen feminine touch to the business world. For instance, it was almost unheard of in the 1970s for a company to have a childcare center. Well, mine did. I was unstoppable and one of the most successful women in business. My company sold for nearly $50 million in 1979. So you little pups should really keep your eyes open for problems to solve and keep your minds open for all kinds of ways to solve them. You never know what you'll think up. Here's an example of that liquid paper, or whiteout as you might call it, that you paint over in case you made a mistake on your paper. Alexander Fleming. Hello and good day to you, student inventors. It is a pleasure to be here in the class. My name is Alexander Fleming. Well, Sir Alexander Fleming, as of the day I was knighted by King George VI in 1944. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I was born on August 6, 1881, on a farm in Ayrshire, Scotland. But I wasn't meant for farm life. I moved to London as a young man and I became a bacteriologist, a scientist who conducts experiments on bacteria. During World War I served as captain in the Royal Army Medical Corps. There I saw too many men die needlessly in field hospitals, where I suspected the antiseptics used to clean their infected wounds were more dangerous than the wounds themselves. But no one heeded my warnings and the antiseptics continued to be used. It was, to say the least, a very frustrating time for me. After the war, I was busy at St. Mary's Hospital in London studying a particularly nasty bacteria called staphylococcus that causes boils, abscesses, and sore throats. I had a very good reputation amongst those studying bacteria, though I was known to be a little sloppy. Okay, very sloppy in my lab. I admit it, being orderly isn't my strength. You can't imagine the trouble this got me into growing up on the farm. I mean, do you know how angry a cow gets when you forget to milk her? But I digress. On September 3rd, 1928, I returned from a lengthy family holiday to find that I'd left a stack of petri dishes filled with live bacteria cultures sitting out on a bench. Needless to say, this is not where cultures ought to be left, even for a night or two. Unsurprisingly, one of the cultures had become contaminated, invaded by a fungus, a kind of mold. But surprisingly, the fungus seemed to be preventing the bacteria from growing around it. This was curious. So I decided to grow the fungus, which I called Penicillin, again, and realized that it successfully kills bacteria. This was great, but I still didn't comprehend the huge import of what I had discovered. What can I say? We can't always see precisely what we have when we have it. After all, I tested penicillin for a number of years, but came to the conclusion that it couldn't survive long enough within the human body to fight infection successfully. And so I moved on. Luckily, other scientists stuck with it. By the end of World War II, penicillin was saving many soldiers' lives. And shortly thereafter, I became Sir Alexander Fleming and shared the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Penicillin was the first antibiotic, and it unquestionably changed the world. It is widely considered one of the most important inventions of the 20th century. The moral of the story, I think, I put it something like, one sometimes finds what one is not looking for. When I woke up just after dawn on that day in September of 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic or bacteria killer, but I guess that is exactly what I did. So, Bette Nesmith Graham and Alexander Fleming were our two inventors for today. It is your task as a scholar to write down a sentence for each about what did they invent? What kind of challenges or disappointments did they face in coming up with their inventions? And what's one interesting fact that you found out about this inventor or their inventions? So, hopefully you enjoyed learning about all these inventors over the last couple of weeks. Next week, as we prepare for spring break, your science activities on Tuesday and Thursday will allow you to pick and choose what science article you will want to read and the questions that you will have to answer, much as we did with CKLA the previous week. So, thank you for your time, stay awesome, and I will talk to you real soon.